Hey YouTube, how you going? Welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be using AI to help me create a patch request in order to edit folders within a note management SaaS application that I'm currently building. Probably a good opportunity actually just to very quickly show everyone that. So copy this password and explain myself in a little bit more detail. So in this video, I'm going to use AI to write all of the code. We're then going to implement the code and I'll talk you through my approach. As you can see, this is kind of a note management application. It's basically like a second brain where you can create notes, but there's no way to currently edit notes. So if you've watched any of my other videos, I apologize, but this is just a brief recap. What I've got here is a very detailed prompt, and I'll run you through that in a second to explain how I use this prompt and why kind of this approach works. To visualize it though, for those of you who might prefer a bit of a visual structure, typically when you are writing an application, you'll have a lot of reusable services, whether they're middleware or utils, and there can also be folders such as a routes folder or a controller folder that might have multiple functions in it and serve multiple different purposes. When working with AI, what I've found really helpful to do is to be very compartmentalized. So for example, if we do look at the existing functionality we have for folders, we've got this get all folders, and within these files, it basically just does one thing. It gets all of the folders in our application. Which you can see here on the left hand side on the front end. So what we are doing today though is the ability to edit that folder, and we're going to use Claude for this. If you are not familiar with Claude or haven't used Claude for coding, welcome. It's significantly better in my opinion than ChatGPT, predominantly because you can also define this kind of project knowledge, and it can be a lot more robust and hold a lot more files than ChatGPT can. So what we need to do first of all is just make sure that Claude has access to all of our knowledge that we need for this. I'm just bringing this off screen because I need to upload some files, and I think it'll start in a part of my documents that I don't want necessarily to show the world. So I've just uploaded the folder model, and what I might also do is if we now come back into our knowledge bank here, we go into components, folders, get all folders. I'll give it the context of how we create folders as well. So with that, it should have a lot of the context of the backend as it stands currently. So for example, if we go here to folder, you'll see that within our folder model, each folder has a folder name, a folder color, and a folder order, as well as a parent folder. For now, we're not really worried on parent folders. That's not a thing that's supported on the front end, but we do want people to be able to rename the folder name and the folder color and do that on the front end, but obviously we need to create the backend services to do that. So here's a prompt that I have developed over time, just through trial and error, that makes it a lot easier for Claude to get it right first time. So all of this information here, this background overview of project setup and files and project considerations, Claude has access to that here in this project knowledge and the kind of core instructions at the top. So we don't need to cut and paste that in all the time, but basically I'm telling it, hey, we're building a Zettelkasten inspired note-taking and knowledge management system. Once completed, you'll be able to do all these things, create notes, edit notes, etc. And then, in our project setup, we've got a file called structure.md, which provides an overview of our file and folder structure. And I think perhaps the most important thing is that we actually are using a submodule, which is auth backend, which is kind of another application that I developed as a reusable template. So I needed to give it that context. Then this is what we are going to be providing Claude with today. So as a user, I want to be able to edit a folder name, folder color, and folder order. In auth backend, I have a company model, and in knowledge bank, so auth backend is a submodule, knowledge bank is a current project. I have a model called extended company. I should probably say which extends our company model, and which then references our folder model. So just giving it context and then reconfirming with this line in your project knowledge, you can see this model in the folder.js file. What I want you to do is write code for this one specific piece of functionality. So that's kind of the key thing. The API endpoint we need to create is a patch request. So to edit content, you can create a put request or a patch request. The difference is with a put request, if you have multiple fields like folder name, folder color, and you just change the folder name, you have to pass in everything else. Otherwise, these fields would get overridden with nothing. With a patch, you can specify just the one field that you kind of want to update. So again, just giving it a little bit of context to our index.js, which is where our routes are defined, and then going into more specific functionality for the components itself. I have noticed a slight issue here. So within our components folder, we'll have a subfolder, components / folders folder. We'll have a subfolder titled edit folder. Again, being very specific. Therefore, that's the directory path, again specific. And then within this subfolder, we're going to create, or have AI create a couple of different files: edit folder.routes, edit folder.controller, edit folder.services, and edit folder.utils. And if required, edit folder.validation chains. So again, if you're not familiar with what all of this might mean, this is our route, so the API endpoint. So basically what I said here. And that just says, hey, if someone calls that API endpoint, what do? We pass it on to our controller. The controller then calls services, which are then going to call utils. And I'm saying here, I know it's best practice to have a global utils approach. If there's reusable logic, that's what you would normally do. And that's kind of this. But what we're trying to get to is something that's much more flatter structure. So from the AI point of view, if I ever need to update or have AI understand this, I can pass in a much smaller number of files that have less dependencies and interrelated relationships, and it should understand it. There's still going to be some stuff that's global, like authentication and error handling, but as much as possible, trying to keep it flat. Okay, so and then I'm saying, to be very specific, this is what I envisage. A controller accepts the request and extracts the folder ID from the URL parameters. This controller calls a service in edit folder. I think it's edit folder dot services.js, which in turn calls separate utilities for edit the folder name, folder color, or folder order. Each of these folders and any others each of these utils and any others you need should do one specific thing. So again, that's just a lesson learned with AI. If you have very specific functions, if there's an issue, it's a lot easier for it to figure out what's going on. And we also must ensure that the folder being edited belongs to both the company and the user. And again, just reinforcing compartmentalized. And the response should be returned to the user. And we ask AI to tell us if it has any questions. So we're going to copy and paste this into Claude within our project. And yeah, if we don't have any questions, please proceed with writing all of the required code. So it's good that it comes up with questions. Yes, if someone moves folder A from 3 to 1, then all other, then shift up. No. Actually, yes, folder numbers must be positive and prevent duplicate names. Also, folder names should be considered the same whether they are lowercase or uppercase. Both, i.e. marketing is the same as marketing or. Alright, 3, when editing a folder, should we allow changing its parent folder? No, that will be separate. For now, let's return just the updated folder. Yes. Please now respond with all of the code. So most of the time, if you're asking Claude or AI to provide any questions, it actually kind of prompts you to think about things. And you know, for example, duplicate names. Again, probably in time I should edit and update these prompts to consider that, because it is a common question that I've seen. But it does help you think through it. And now that we've done that, it should provide code that either ideally works straight away, and in my experience, these kind of fairly simple you know, create, read, update type requests do work straight away. If not, in my opinion, if you can get it working within 3 or 4 prompts, that's normally a pretty good result. If it takes longer than that, there's normally an issue either with the prompt or with its understanding of what you want it to do. But without kind of getting too far ahead, I would be fairly positive that this is going to work fairly seamlessly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up our code. Actually, I'm going to pull this over here onto the other screen so I can cut and paste. And we're going to go through this as we go. So in folders, we need to create a new folder. Not in folders, in folders. And we're going to call this edit folder. And then inside edit folder, we need to create each of our files. So edit folder.validation chains.js. We're going to copy and paste this in here. Now, because it has access to all of our other files, it should know that we're using express validated, which it does. It hasn't considered our error handling, which is a little bit annoying, but the code will still work. We can always come back to that. So edit folder.utils.js, and it's providing these a little bit out of order, but it's all right. Save. And we'll run through the code once I've cut and pasted it in. Our controller. And our routes. And then in our index, which is where we bring all of our routes together, we need to bring in, so you check that file path, and then router.use routes. Router.use /folders, put that in there. All right, so if we go here, we go to our route, we edit folder, pass in the folder ID, which goes to our controller. So you can see that it goes via our validation chains. We should look at that first. So it checks we've got a folder ID. It checks that we're passing in folder name, folder color, or folder order. These are all optional, so it doesn't need them. After the validation chain, it then calls our edit folder functionality in our controller. So we get the ID off the URL parameters. We check these are the updates that we need: folder name, folder color, and folder order, which we get off the request.body. Filter out undefined values, and then actually, let me just double check. It did do a patch request, good. And then it passes it to this service, passing in the folder ID and any of the required updates. I mean, technically you could pass in all of these directly here, but it's extrapolated that out, so it's fine. And then we go over to edit folder, and then within edit folder, we validate the folder ownership. And then here we've got all of our different all of our different utilities. So kind of like specific functions. Again, you could have all of this in the services itself, but I like extrapolating it out for the purposes of working with AI. So we check for duplicate folder names. If updating the folder order, we update the order. If updating folder data, we do that. So I think it's covering color and folder name in the one function, which we'll see in a second. So if we go to utils, so here we've got the validate. So validate ownership, which we saw before. Validate duplicate folder name. So it normalizes everything to lowercase. It checks if there's an existing folder with that based on the ID, the company, parent name, folder name. Throws an error. So here it's got our validation error working correctly. But it didn't use that same error handling function in the validation chains. And then update folder order, so this is a function for doing that. And then it reorders if things moving up or if moving down. And then here's the validate and update folder. So folder update folder name, and folder color, and folder order. Okay. Update many. Yeah, cool. So that should all work. So if we log in, what we're going to have to do is get a couple of things. We need to get a folder ID. So we're going to log in. We're going to copy this, and then somewhere along here, get all folders. In the header, should be able to pass this in, send this. Okay, I've got two folders. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this tab, and then I am going to do a file save as, and call this edit folder. Change this to a patch, file save as, save. Why did it? Sorry, it overwrote. I should have done a file save as first. Save that, just so we have get all folders back. Okay, edit folders. So on here, if we go routes, it was edit folder / folder ID. So if we edit folder, and then here we need to put in our ID. So if we just get one of these IDs, let's see this one. So currently it's called marketing. We've still got our bearer token, so body, raw, JSON. So if we call this folder name, we'll call this updated marketing, we can send that. Cannot read properties, undefined ID. All right, let's double check this. Want to double check one thing. Yeah, I'm putting that in right. Just having mind blank, making sure I put this in right. But I cannot read properties of ID edit folder controller. So if we go here, rec.user.company ID. Yeah, I have the right bearer token. So this is one of those examples where AI hasn't. Yeah, see, it says invalid authorization token. Let me just log in again. It should be a fairly simple error to fix. So log in. Just make sure we're getting our bearer token correctly. Send. Alright, cannot read properties of undefined ID. So what we have here is it can't read this, which is a little bit annoying. Rec.user. So if we just console log here, console.log is user, rec.user, just double check we don't have any errors, and then I'm going to call this again, it'll still fail. Oh, red, rec. I just want to see what we're getting off rec.user, just double check. Send. Okay, and then if we look here, user. Okay, so we're not getting the company ID. So try and remember off the top of my head, if we, for example, look at another, perhaps something like delete note, we would be checking the user ID. No, where do we check the user ID? Not get, won't be in a get request. Yeah, user find by ID populate. So we do need to populate company, and then company ID will be equal to this. So let's just copy this code and come over to, and you could prompt AI to do this actually. Maybe I should for the purposes of this video, but it's probably easy just to come on. So we need to bring in user const user equals require models user. And then user equals wait user find by ID, and then company equals user ID. Sorry, just had to pause briefly there for a second. So now here we're just going to pass in company ID here, save that. Alright, and then if we come over here, it's not happy with models user. So up 1, up 2, up 3 models. Actually, sorry, it's going to be in auth backend /models. Okay. Now if we edit this, send, user ID is not defined. That's my mistake. Rec dot. What are we doing? Rec dot user. Send. Okay, so folder updated successfully. There's the marketing name, and then look what we can do. If we want to update two things at once, let's call this updated marketing 2, and then let's just change this to like, I don't know what that color is. Hopefully it is a color. Send again. Okay, color must have a hex. That's not real hex code. Hex code for purple. Send. Folder updated successfully. There's the color. There's the updated name to 2. So that definitely worked, but I'm conscious that I was talking about doing this with AI. So I do just want to make sure that everyone understands that if you ran into that, and there it goes, it gave us an example. What we could say is, great, it can't find company. So it was in our controller. So if we go, it can't find rec.user.company._ID. That's because rec.user doesn't have the field company._ID, which is what we console log. So first you need to bring in the user model and then extract the company ID. And then populate user with company to get the company ID to then pass it to the edit folder in edit folder service. Please just return the code for the edit folder.controller.js file. Okay. So you might not know specifically to write that, but if you just fed it the error, hey, it's not finding rec.user.company.id, it would figure it out. Or as I said, you know, like I did, I looked at another folder just to kind of refresh my memory and understand what was going on. And I remembered, oh yeah, user doesn't have the company automatically populated, so we need to do that. And you can see here that actually it's done a little bit better because it's gotten, in our code, if we go to controller, we just try and get the user, whereas here gets the user, but if there's no user, it does throw an error. So I'll cut and paste that and bring that in. It populates company, and then it passes the company ID off of user itself, whereas I extrapolated it out into its own constant or variable. So I will just copy if no user so that it's got that error handling, and in order to do that I also need to bring in our not found error, so we can do that. Probably a good time to also say I noticed in the validation chains file you didn't use our error types. Can you please do this? Let's see if it does this correctly. So this is where it just had if no mongoose types the object ID is valid, just throws an error, whereas we do want to use our error types, custom error types. So hopefully it can just do this for us. And you can see here it brings in our validation error. So we're just going to bring in this. Again, if you've been writing this application, you would know that you have that available. So it's a fairly simple and easy thing to pick up. And yeah, you can just cut and paste that in, and then you're using that. It's actually also throwing custom errors in these other areas, instead of putting in a message. So actually it puts in a message and then also throws the custom error. So we'll do that as well. And same here. And that's also, it already had this in matching, so this is why it threw if the hex code wasn't valid with the random one I tried to create. And we'll do the same here for fold order. So optional, yep, is int minimum. Okay, cool. And yeah, with that, I did have to pause the video, so I can't see how long I've been recording for completely when someone walked in, but what we can see here is we've used the patch request to very quickly and easily create this functionality on our backend, and now when we want to, we can go ahead and update the front end to be able to allow users to update the folder name, folder color, and folder order. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.